Everybody can really do this at scale today for relatively cheap, relatively fast, and very precise. And so I call it the executive edge. I'm a former college football player, so we always talk about the competitive edge. And what I've learned is that if you're an executive in 2025 and you have a personal brand, that's automatically going to separate you from other people in your industry. And side note, if at any point you want the slides, I have also video tutorials and prompts and links to a lot of the stuff. Just go to frheart2.com/bestlife and all of it's there. So why personal brand and content creation? The thing I've always said is it's the only form of marketing that you can scale exponentially. Dustin and I actually talked about this on a podcast that we did a week ago, but when I've talked to people in the past and I asked them about like, hey, what are you doing for marketing? They'll say, well, we love Google ads. And I'll say, well, what's your return on Google ads? And they'll tell me 4 to 1. And I'll be like, man, that's great. And they'll be like, well, we don't believe in the social media stuff. We don't think it works. And so when I first got started, I used to sit there and try to argue with people, but I'm past that phase of my life. Now I just ask them, I say, okay, if you think that Google ads is the only thing you need and you're getting a 4 to 1 return, why not go to a bank, get the biggest line of credit at a 50% interest rate, run the Google ads for 30 days, and then you can pay back the money with interest and still have a lot of money left over. And the reason why nobody necessarily can double down that concept is because if you're spending a lot of money, it's hard to spend even more money if you want to scale with what you're doing. But when it comes to content creation, you'll see today the apps that I'm going to tell you to get are $100 a month, and then to get started as far as the tech that you need is probably another $100, but you can always scale that, right? Like if I'm spending $5,000 a month on paid, I can't necessarily 10x the creative in an hour, but with this, you'll be able to 10x your content creation and your personal brand relatively quickly. The next thing, like I said, it's the only form of marketing that you can start today without setups. Again, what I mean by that is if you go to a paid media company, the first thing they're going to ask you for is if you have creative, right? But when it comes to personal branding and content creation, you can get started with that today. Like what I said before, every other form of marketing requires content, whether it's email, Facebook, Google, whatever it is. You need to be able to create content in order for that stuff to do well. So the better you get at making content, it'll help you even more. And your personal brand is the biggest lever to get your name out there. And this also relates to the rest of the points. It's not always about the best product in the market. A lot of times it's about the best known, right? Like as business owners, think to yourself, how many times have you seen somebody out there making a whole lot more money than you in an industry, and you're like, man, that person is not even that good at what they do, right? We see it all the time, whether it be, I see it in marketing, I see it in home services, people see it in fitness, coaching, whatever it is. But the reason why people are buying their product is because they're the best known. So if you're already the best, and then you can figure out how to be the best known, it's a recipe for success. So with all of that being said, I've always focused on personal branding, but because of AI, now the sky's the limit to what we can do. And so I'm not gonna go into a full-blown conversation on what exactly AI is. One thing that I've taken pride in my business career is taking very complex concepts and making them super simple. So the way I look at it is AI is a technology that can mimic human thinking and working to help us work smarter, not harder. That's what it comes down to. If you can have a technology that can think like a staff member or that can think like an employee, that doesn't get tired and will continuously give you ideas, it's a game changer. The second point that I want to talk about, it does level the playing field for small companies, but this is the point I really want to talk about, right? So in the past, what happened was assets were the value proposition for companies and brands. So what do I mean by that? Back in the Madison Avenue era, if I look at marketing, the companies that could charge $50, $100, $200,000 for a commercial were the companies who own video cameras because they cost $30, $40, $50,000. But then what happened is as the markets changed and now they created affordable cameras, they created iPhone cameras that are really close to being just as good as the expensive cameras. Now that's no longer a value proposition, that's a commodity. Then what happened? Companies like Boston Consulting Group, Bain & McKinsey, right? They sell ideas, they sell strategies. And while that's all fine and dandy, because of AI, now ideas have become a commodity. One prompt that I literally use on ChatGPT is, I tell it to position itself as the top 3 consulting companies in the world and analyze a business plan that I'm doing, right? Before I had to pay millions of dollars to talk to those people. Now I pay $20 a month and I can get pretty much the same results. So if the assets are now a commodity and the ideas are now the commodity, now it's your ability to execute and your ability to have a brand which is going to separate you. I see my buddy Nick in the back, and he'll be the first one to tell you that it doesn't matter if you're a fitness coach, if you have a great workout plan, what separates you from everybody else is your ability to execute. Did I say that right? There we go. So a couple things to remember during this presentation. This is one math equation I keep in my head all the time, is that human expertise plus AI equals maximum impact, right? There's a lot of people right now who are claiming to be AI gurus. a month after AI technology comes out, and that's probably one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my life. But if you know how to take your expertise, which you've been teaching for years, and then use the technology, you're gonna be able to scale everything you're doing crazier than before. One of my favorite books is Robert E. Greene's 48 Laws of Power. And in the book, he says you can intimidate and influence others by reputation alone, right? And so when you think about a personal brand, you want it to be almost to the point where when people want to work with you, they get excited. And when people in your industry who are your competition see you, they get nervous, right? And that's just the football player in me. That's always how that's my mindset that I've always had, right? This one is also a super important one. I believe that when it comes to business, people talk about discipline and people talk about purpose, but oftentimes we don't talk about intention, right? And I believe that intention is the gateway from decision to purpose. I'm gonna use Nick again as an example, right? If I go to the gym every day, right? And I want to be a bodybuilder, but I'm not intentional on how I lift weights or the exercises I do, I'm not going to be able to get to my purpose. And so with AI, it allows you to be more intentional because you take emotions out of the equation. And then as a man of faith, Matthew 25:21 says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things." Now, as a man of God, I'm here to tell you that there's nowhere in the Bible that it says that if you love God, you'll be rich or you'll be famous. But the Bible clearly does show us that if you're able to do with little, he'll give you a lot. And so these platforms are free. These AI technologies are super inexpensive. So stewardship is the key to being able to really get your brand out there so that you can really make the impact that you desire. So this is something else that I talk about. It's called the known credible paradox. So everybody is either credible or not credible, and they're known or not known. And so the people who are here almost think of like the Warren Buffett, Ray Dalios, right? They're top of mind thought leaders, right? Like they have a track record, and because they have a track record and because they get their name out there, people want to know about what they're doing, right? If you're not known and you're not credible, you're just going to be forgotten, right? Because people want answers in life, and people buy from people, they don't buy from brands. Now, if you're known but not credible, oftentimes these people are looked at as scams in the industry because they pop up out of nowhere. And people say, well, how do I even know the track record that this person has, right? Think about all the social media scammers. Like when you don't know what they do, but they're driving a Ferrari, something's usually up, and that's how they end up in this section. Now, I think a majority, if not everybody in this room, oftentimes falls into this section where they're credible and not known. But the benefit of that is the fact that if you're credible, but you're not known, you can get known through doing the strategies that we're going to talk about today. So a couple things that you'll need to get started. Again, like I said, all in, it's probably going to be $180 up front and then $100 to $120 a month. The first thing that you need is a good audio source. And so I have the link on here, but I call this the Hollyland M2S. It's on Amazon for like $130. You can plug it into your iPhone and you can create content at scale with that. I suggest everybody get the paid version of ChatGPT. And then if you, on your iPhone, you have the voice memo app, it's 100% free, but it's going to be a game changer for what we'll implement today. Canva is $15 a month. It's a great creative design tool that's going to allow you to create lots of things at scale. This one is a game changer. I've really doubled down on transferring a lot of my team to this, and this is called Submagic. And Submagic allows you to put the subtitles on your videos, but it's not necessarily like a captions or a CapCut where like creatively you're only stuck to a couple of options. It allows you to emulate styles that are already working in the market and apply them to your content. And then CapCut is a great video editing app, because a lot of people don't necessarily want to learn Adobe. So this allows you to edit videos fast, whether it be on your phone, on your computer, whatever it is. And then if you want to buy a tripod, you can buy a tripod for your phone. That way you have the ability to start filming content. Another thing, when you're filming good lighting, either in a room or outside. And if you're in a room, try to face where the good lighting's coming in from. That way you look presentable. So now I wanted to really dig deep onto how we're going to be able to scale using AI. So the first thing that I think everybody should do is create a custom ChatGPT voice, right? Like raise your hand if you've used ChatGPT before and you've gotten a result and you're like, that doesn't sound like me, right? So usually if it's saying like in the dynamic world of something, usually it's because people don't have a prompt in there to get it to sound like them. But the benefit of this is it usually takes 2 to 3 minutes to do this. And once you do this once, you do it forever, you have it forever. And so basically what you'll do is you'll go to the voice memo app on your iPhone and you'll click record and you'll just answer these questions. Again, this whole thing is on the URL there. But what I do is I take these 3 questions and just go in depth. You can have a 5-minute conversation, you can have a 10-minute conversation, you can have a 20-minute conversation. But then what the voice memo app does now is there's an ability to transcribe the recording. So then what you do is you take that recording, transcribe it, it does it on the phone instantly, and then you put the transcription into ChatGPT with this prompt here. So now you've had a conversation, you haven't necessarily altered the way you're speaking, and now ChatGPT is going to be able to pick up on those things. So now when you want to write articles, write email newsletters, write captions for social media, it'll sound like you based on the transcription that you gave it. So the next thing that you want to do is you want to create an ideal avatar, right? So a lot of times what happens is when people create content or promote their personal brand, they go too wide. And what I've learned from not only my life, but my client's life, is that the more focused you are with who you're trying to target, the better off you're going to be with actually reaching those ideal people. And so, again, you'll need the voice memo app for this. But what you're going to do is you're going to have another conversation, right? The cool thing about this part is ChatGPT has no emotions. So you may think your ideal avatar is somebody, but if you hit record and start to have a conversation and answer all of these topics right here, it may give you a different avatar that you may not be realizing that you need to be talking to, right? So example, in my life, when I did this, I try to do it once a quarter, but when I did this, it showed me that somebody that I needed to look at to try to market to or sell our services to was somebody in the fintech space, because a lot of startups have the resources, but they just don't have the time to promote. But I would have never gotten that response or had that thought if it didn't analyze the transcript. So again, you answer these questions and then you give it the prompt. And when you give it the prompt, it's going to give you 3 avatars, and it's going to give you avatars with like names, with ages, like the revenue ranges, like the services, right? That way, going forward, whenever you're crafting content, it makes all the sense in the world to what you're trying to do. I'm going to talk about my buddy Nick again, right? So in the fitness space, yeah, I told Dustin that this was coming. So in the fitness space, right, if I'm somebody who's a biohacker or I'm somebody who's a bodybuilder, like I need to know the muscle groups, I need to know everything that's going on, right? But if I'm somebody who wants to work with Fortune 500 CEOs to get them in the best shape of their life, they don't care about any of that stuff. So the issue that you run into is if you talk about that stuff to try to attract these people, you're not going to attract these people. But if you focus on what these people want and what these people are looking for, that's how you position yourself as the thought leader for that specific industry. So the 4 pillars of a personal brand as far as content goes is short form video, long form, email, and info/motivation. I think that anybody can start creating all 4 of these today, and this is what I've learned has been the most effective, because short form builds brand awareness, long form helps you nurture those relationships, email is a source of traffic that you own, and then info and motivation allows you to increase engagement. So when we talk about short form content, everybody's seen them online, whether it be the videos with the subtitles, whatever it is. The best thing about short form content is it's the only form of content that doesn't have to be altered whenever you post it on all the social media platforms, right? So if you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have LinkedIn, you have YouTube, and you have TikTok, you can get a social media scheduler and you can post that one short form video, and you don't have to worry about it looking funny on any of the platforms, where it's like you might have to post a picture different on some platforms versus the other. So that's the benefit there. And then it allows a personal connection because people are getting to see your face and learn about you, right? One of the things that I had on the earlier slides is that when you develop a personal brand, the first conversation in person with a prospect goes from who are you and what do you do to I know what you do, how can you help me? And so there are 3 types of ways that I film short form content whenever promoting a personal brand. The first one is the starter sentence format. Some people call it a hook, but my main focus here sometimes is taking the subject that I want people to learn about and putting it into the video so they pay attention. So sometimes on my content, I'll say, if you're a CEO or executive, right? It's not necessarily, I'm not trying to go viral. I just want to make sure that CEOs and executives see my stuff, right? Because a lot of people will talk about social media and they'll say like, you should try to go viral, you should have a lot of followers. But again, if your ideal audience is a 35 to 45-year-old business owner and you have 1 million followers, but everybody's under 18, like that doesn't do you any benefit. But my goal is to position you guys as thought leaders in your industry. That way, as soon as somebody says, hey, I need this, I need that, they think about you. So after the starter sentence, you have the expertise blurb. This is where the benefit of being credible comes into play, because on this style of video, I don't necessarily believe that you need to script anything on this style, right? So if you have questions about, like, if you have the questions that you're answering and you have the starter sentence, then you have the expertise blurb, right? Like, you're talking about what's already on the top of your head, right? So I can talk about marketing for days, right? Because, like, that's what I do for a living. Nick can talk about fitness. Like, whatever industry you're in, you can talk about all the time if you're actually credible. And so that's how that comes into play. And then for the outro, oftentimes it's a call to action. You can actually do a couple things with the outro. You can create them in Canva, which I've done in the past, or you can go to Fiverr and you can pay 10 to 15 bucks and get an outro for your short form videos. But again, this is a great way to get started. I would say this is level 2 when it comes to getting started on short form content. And so I have an example here, and this one was actually edited on my phone using CapCut, but like, sky's the limit for the editing capabilities. If somebody's told you that ideas and strategies are the game changer or the separator from other people in your industry, the fact of the matter is, in 2025, they probably have not used AI, and here's what I mean. See, I believe when business first started, it was the assets or the products or the deliverables that you were giving, which were the game changers. And over time, the idea and the strategy made you be able to... As you can see, I don't talk about a lot of different things. Whether it be products or services in any industry. But now, because of AI, ideas and strategies are now a commodity, and it comes down to how can you execute those ideas and strategies and the brand you have behind them. Because at the end of the day, the product that people buy or the service that people buy is not always the best, but a lot of times it's the best known. You're saying that in 2025, execution and brand is going to be what separates you from other people in your industry. If you're a small business owner, a CEO, or executive who's looking to scale your content creation, feel free to shoot me a message, and I'd love to have a conversation about how we can help you make your message known. So that's an example of the starter sentence. And so, again, it allows you to speak from expertise and not necessarily having to worry about, like, scripting content in the beginning. The next one is the interview content prompt. So, like, a lot of times, some people aren't comfortable on camera, right? Like, and I think it's important, but I'm also a realist, and I'm not going to be the person who says, like, if you don't want to be on camera, like, if you don't know how to speak, like, it's a problem. It's like, no, that's the reality, right? So what you can do is you can literally, if I'm talking at the camera like this, I can just sit off to the side and I can have somebody else read me questions, and then we can just have a conversation, right? Because somebody who is super credible but may not want to be on camera, this allows them to get all that information out of their head, and now you have it recorded. And so for this, sometimes I use an outro, sometimes I don't, but this prompt on the side, what it will do is it will give you interview style questions to then be able to have a conversation with somebody. And if I'm actually gonna go back. So like this prompt here, once you put it in, you'll put the prompt in, you'll change your industry, your specialization, and then those avatars that we created a couple slides back, you'll put those in, and it'll actually give you a graph of exactly what to say as a starter sentence and then the topic to speak on. And so for the interview style, it's the same thing. You'll put your industry, specialization, and then you'll put your ideal avatars again, and it's gonna give you 15 interview questions to speak. That way, 15 interview questions may take 20 minutes, but now you have 15 videos that you can now distribute on social media. And so I'm not gonna necessarily play it, but again, this is, I do the interview style from time to time. I actually like talking on camera, but like I do the interview style from time to time. And again, it's somebody's here asking me the questions, they ask, they pause for a minute, and then I answer. And then one thing that I've kind of been doubling down on over the last 3 months is, I call it strategic thought leadership. And so the benefit with this style of content is it's a little bit more scripted, but because we have our ideal avatar and our custom voice in ChatGPT, it's gonna allow us to create content that ideal person is gonna wanna watch and wanna listen to. And so what you'll do here is, this one is more of a hook, right? And then you have the scripted body. But what I always want to do is I always want to take the human expertise element and put it into it. And so here you get to talk about a personal experience, because that alone is going to separate your content from anybody else in the market, right? If I say, give me a viral script, it can give me a viral script. But this personal experience here is going to change the game as far as like the content that I put out, because like unless somebody's gonna copy my personal experiences, which would be like kind of weird, that's unlikely. But this allows you to separate yourself from other people in your industry. And then again, going back to that outro, you can get it made on Canva, Fiverr, lots of things. And again, this prompt will give you all of that with the ideal avatar, your industry, and your specialization. And so I have an example of what that looks like as well.
Nobody trusts your brand because nobody knows your face. Think about it. In a market full of options, people don't buy from brands, people buy from people. And so if you're hiding behind a logo, you're losing one of your most important trust builders, which is you. The truth is, your audience wants to connect with the person who's leading, who's making the decisions, and ultimately who's providing the solution to the problems that they have. I've worked with clients in the past who have sold their business, and the people who they're selling their business to oftentimes utilize social media to see the type of leader that they're going to be working with. You don't need to be an influencer, you just need to show up. Because the instant that your face becomes familiar, your brand now becomes trustworthy. If you're ready to be seen as the expert you already are, we can build a system that makes showing up effortless.
And so that's the same structure here. And again, that allows you to get those thoughts out of your head and into a format that your ideal person is going to want to pay attention to. But a lot of times whenever we talk about video, people say, well, what about the editing aspect of it? And so the editing that I think you can do, I think that somebody on your team can do, I think somebody you could hire virtually to do, is simple. I take this video, I put it into CapCut, and then what I do is anytime I pause or I say I just remove that, and then I take all the clips and put them together so they move a lot faster. And then I just take that clip and I put it into Submagic. Now, the reason why I mentioned Submagic earlier is because of the fact that it already sees viral styles of subtitles that are working in the market. So it'll use AI to read what you're saying, so you don't even have to manually do that. And then you can just pick a style, right? But then you can also make the style custom to what you want. So then you upload it, it adds the subtitles, you watch it, you make sure it's good. You can add audio, you can do a lot of things in this platform, but I think that this platform is actually going to be starting to be used by a lot of businesses because it's the easiest platform and it's web-based, right? So if you have a team, you can see what videos have been worked on versus like trying to communicate with somebody who has a software that you don't have, that you have to wish and hope for the best. And so the goal is to develop a personal brand, not to become a media person. And so that's why this editing tactic I felt to be the most efficient and the most effective. And this also allows you to commoditize the process. One thing that Dustin and I talk about is that the process of creating content, what happens a lot of times is people use the arbitrage model, so they find one person to do everything. And the issue is with that is that as soon as that one person leaves or that one person is tired or they want more money or they want to do something else, like you're in a bind, right? But if you can say, okay, this person's filming, this person's editing, well, now you've split up the process even more than if you go filming, editing, adding the subtitles. Now if somebody drops off, you can still get your content out at scale. And as far as like social media schedulers, they help here too. I have one that I use with High Level. You can use Hootsuite. There's lots of ones out there as well. So then long form content, this allows you to separate yourself as others in the industry. Going back to short form, it's great for building brand awareness, but anybody could talk about something for 30 to 60 seconds. When you can talk about something for 8 to 10 minutes, I know what you're talking about for the most part. And so it makes the sales process easier because if people are looking at your short form, then they look at your YouTube videos, all of a sudden when they book a meeting, they already know your knowledge and they already know what you provide. Now it's just how can you help me like we talked about before. YouTube, of course, is the platform that a lot of people use for long form. I've been posting long form content on LinkedIn as of recently, and it actually does pretty well, not from a viewership perspective, but from a conversation starter perspective. And you can even take your YouTube URLs and put them on Facebook. And so how I edit long form videos, I get the topic. I get the topic from the prompt, which I'll put the prompt on here later, but I take that long form prompt, which basically says, give me 10 long form content ideas. I sit down, I record one of them using an iPhone, using a camera. I do the same thing. I take out the oohs and ums on CapCut, put it together. And then if I have an intro or outro, I create one on Canva. And then from there, I upload it to YouTube, right? Like the name of the game is speed when it comes to content creation. And that's what AI is supposed to be helping you with. So if you can, the faster you can get this stuff out there, the better that you can get at it and the more that you can learn in the process. Another thing that we do when it comes to personal branding is build email newsletters, constant emails. The benefit of emails, there's no algorithm. Everybody on your list knows you and you own the traffic. if you have 10,000 people on an email list and your Instagram account gets shut down, you can email those 10,000 people about your new Instagram account, and you can get some of those followers back, right? And at the end of the day, if you have 10,000 followers on Instagram, only 1 to 2% of them are actually going to see the content. With email, it goes to everybody's inbox if you set it up right. And again, you can design graphics here on Canva, but what I do when it comes to emails is I reverse prompt ChatGPT to think of itself as the most elite email marketer and copywriter ever, right? Because then what it's going to do is it's going to look at the internet and it's going to start picking out like some of the best known people when it comes to email marketing, and it's going to get bits and pieces of what they do and apply it to the content. And so again, you put your company in there, your target audience, and from there, it's going to position itself to be able to create your emails, whether it be promotional, email newsletter, thought leadership, whatever it is. Basically, how I write emails after I do this, on Submagic, there's a spot once you're done with the video that gives you a transcript. And so all I do is I take that transcript, after I position ChatGPT as an email marketer, I take that transcript and I say, you know my ideal avatar, you know that you're an elite marketer. How can you take this right here and write an email that will get people interested in the product or service I provide, right? I haven't had to think about anything. I already recorded the video. The transcript is already there to be able to scale. And then I convert the transcripts and emails into articles on LinkedIn and other places by taking this prompt and then taking that text and then recycling it again. But again, at the basis of all of this is stuff I already know. So if somebody asks me about it, right, I don't have a problem explaining it. It's not like those situations where these people have 14 books and they have 14 ghostwriters, and if you go up to them and ask them what chapter 3 said, they have no idea. We don't have that issue here. And so that's how you're able to create this content wheel, all from the basis of the content that you originally created that started all up here. And then another thing that I do is I'll create thought leadership quotes. And so basically, cool thing about this is once it has your custom voice, your ideal avatar, you can literally hit record on ChatGPT and say, hey, this is what I'm going through in business. I think other people would benefit from this as well. Write a quote in one sentence that talks about this, right? And so when you do that, it's going to give you ideas for days, and you can say, I want the quote longer. I don't want you to use these words. I want the quote shorter. But again, ChatGPT is non-emotional and it never gets tired, so it can generate you ideas for days. And then if you go onto Canva, it has all of these templates. All you got to do is copy, paste, post, and then get your stuff out there. But again, it's at the basis of the stuff you already know. And then just showing somebody what's capable and what's possible. If you spend 1 hour filming and then 1 hour using these systems, which is possible for anybody. Like I was actually working with my mom the other day to see how possible it was. And if you spend 1 hour filming and 1 hour using these systems, you'll get 132 pieces of content. Now, somebody will say, well, there's 20 videos, but like what a lot of these guys online are not telling you about marketing is like if you take one video and post it on 5 different platforms, they consider that to be 5 pieces of content. So that's the same framework that I'm going to use here. And so you'll get 132 pieces of content spending 1 hour filming and then 1 hour using the systems, and that'll give you about 60 days worth of content depending on how long you want to string it out. And so, like I said, going back to it, intentions are key, right? Like if you set a time block during the week to create content at scale, you'll be able to get it done, but you have to be intentional about it, right? Because at the end of the day, like I said before, intention is the segue from discipline to purpose. So if your intentions are off, you're never going to be able to do any of this stuff. So you have to figure out like what's your intention behind it, and then that'll motivate you to get it done. So the goal I have for you guys in the next 7 days, didn't think you'd be getting homework today, huh? Take this URL, watch it, look at the presentation. I want you to try to film and edit 2 videos, create an article for LinkedIn, and create 1 graphic for social, right? Because at the end of the day, if you watch this and you see all of this and you're like, I'm just going to hire somebody, the negative part about that is the fact that if you just hire somebody to do it, you can't actually tell if they're doing it right. But if you learn how to do it yourself, once you delegate it out, you'll be able to have a standard and expectation set. And then the last couple quotes, one quote here that I've read before is Warren Buffett says, if you improve your communication skills, I'll guarantee that you will earn 10 to 50% more over your lifetime. And so I've always said that point is clear. So when you don't write or film that video in a live setting, or you don't write or film that video at your house, like it's not just a soft skill that you're losing. In essence, you're losing market value, because at the end of the day, people don't buy from brands, people buy from people. And so you have to be the best known to show everybody that your product's the best. And so that's all I got for you guys. I would love to answer any questions that you guys have.
All right, so about Submagic.
Yeah.
With the captions, so I noticed that there is like an uptick in erroneous words in the captions. How do you find the quality of what you're getting out of, like, I don't know what the software is that people are using, I just noticed in the video.
Are you talking about just captions in general on social media or with Submagic specifically?
So just in general, so I
Yeah.
don't know what they're using.
Yeah.
I want to know what you've seen with Submagic, the quality of what the output is. Is it accurate?
So the cool thing about Submagic is it's relatively fast to change it, but I was just looking at it this morning. When I film with a microphone and a good audio source, it gives me anywhere from 98 to 99.6% accuracy, right? So what happens a lot of times is, and this is the part that nobody tells you, is people will outsource everything overseas, including the editing, but like those people don't even speak English in the day-to-day, so like to have them edit your subtitles is like, that's a large feat. And like we were actually running into the same issue where it was like I would have the editors add the subtitles and then I'd have the quality control person look at it and then they'd be like, man, these words are off. But like they don't know that. But with Submagic, once you let the AI use it, if there's a word misspelled, you can just change it really quick and you can make those updates on your own. Or after you've learned how to use it, you can take that process and give it to somebody else.
Yeah, I like the 98% accuracy.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it'll get 2 to 3 words off, but other than that, for the most part, it's pretty spot on, and you can edit it yourself too, for the most part.
Earlier, you talked about ChatGPT getting your voice. Were you talking about your audible voice or your writing voice?
Writing voice. So what happens? Like people will. Matter of fact, here. Do we got time? Can I show them something? So like, let's go to ChatGPT. So the other day, one of my clients is the sheriff of Henry County, and so he sent me a voice recording to create a custom voice. So I just got to find the link. So that's not it. So okay, so he sent me a 10-minute recording, and so all I got to do is, and I know you can't see my phone, but I'm gonna try to walk through this process right now. So once you record on your voice memos app, there's something that looks like the wavelength form, right? So that's what it looks like. And in the bottom, there's a quote thing. And as soon as you click that quote thing, it transcribes the entire recording. So then what I'm going to do from there is I'm going to go here. I'm going to select all. And because my computer is synced to my laptop, I put the whole recording in there. And then what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to go back to this prompt, right? And I'm going to put it in front of the transcript. And then when I put it in front of the transcript, what it does from there is it's going to analyze like the inflections and the words he uses. And yeah. So then what's going to happen is it's going to talk about like if he uses analogies, it's going to talk about the words he uses. It's going to talk about the thoughts that he comes out with, right? And so this was actually a pretty long one, so it's still generating. But what you'll do is, once you have that, it's going to give you enough characters to fit. If you see this top section with the jewel at the top, you'll click that, and then you'll click Customize GPT. And then when you say, what trait should your GPT have, that's where you put the result that it's having. So I can actually do it right now. So I take this, I copy that, and then I go to Customize GPT, and then I put it in here, and then I hit Save. And now when I start a new chat, it will sound like him going forward. And so a lot of people only have their voice to generate content for. So this is great to create once, and then you have it forever.
So, admittedly, I haven't used ChatGPT as a consistent strategy in my business. I've used it for certain things. But one thing I had a question about is we all know that stories sell.
Right.
Facts tell, stories sell. So, given that everybody has a unique story and unique circumstances as it relates to their story, I'm curious, because obviously AI, or at least ChatGPT, my assumption is it doesn't know that unless
Right.
I'm uploading
Correct.
posts that are telling my story already.
Absolutely.
So how do you create a win-win with ChatGPT insofar that it's able to tell your story?
So I think that you make a good point, and what I would tell you with that is it goes back to the human expertise plus AI.
Sure.
Another thing that you can kind of interchange here is your story, like what you're talking about. So it's so funny you said. So it's funny you said. I had the same conversation with somebody. I had a conversation about 5 years ago with my dad. So my dad's an architect,
Okay.
and so we were talking.
He's
So we were talking about it, and I said, man, the pyramids in Egypt are so incredible. There's no way anybody in today's world could actually build the pyramids of Egypt. And he was like, Freddie, I love you to death. You're my son. But that's one of the most foolish things I've ever heard. He said we could probably build them faster, more precise, because of the technology that's at hand. And so writing, I think the benefit of having a personal brand is people are buying the book because you wrote it. They're not buying the time that you invested in it. And that's something that like I had to understand too, right? Like as I was growing my business, one of my friends and clients was like, hey bro, like people buy you, like what you do, like there's hundreds of companies that do it, right? But he was like, people buy you, the person and the team. So like if I were you and I were writing a book, I'd create the outline, I would speak to the voice memo app, get it transcribed, create the custom voice, and then just go piece by piece. And then that way you can edit it, but now you spent 3 days on a book versus months. And again, at the end of the day, the personal brand, I'm not going to care if you wrote a book with AI or if you spent 2 years to write it, if I just want to buy the book because you wrote it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's the dichotomy of it, and that's like the hard part about using AI, right? Because like I experienced this with the creatives that I work with, right? Like they're like, AI can't edit like me, AI can't create great pictures like me, and I'm like, yet.
Yeah, right.
So,
3 months.
right. So like, how do you adapt to that? And like, how do you adapt to that? You adapt to it by understanding the technologies here and then figuring out how to utilize it. So like, if you have all this information in your head and you were to create 12 hours worth of transcripts, you could probably create 4 to 5 books in 2 months, right? And it's like, people are still going to buy the books because it's you. Like the other day, one of my favorite scriptures is 1 Corinthians 9:24. I had years and years worth of sermons on my computer. I took them, put them together, used AI, and I published a kid's book in 2 days, right? And so it's like people bought the book because it was me. They didn't care how the book got published. And so that's the thing that when it comes to a personal brand, that's the benefit of AI is like at the end of the day, people are buying you. People aren't buying the services you provide because lots of other people do it, but people are buying you, right? So it's like if you know that deep down inside people are buying you, use these technologies and 5, 10, 20x what you're doing, and people will just buy more of you, right? Like that's the way I look at it.
And you're also at the end of the day anyway.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, I've got the blocks in providing a ton of context. So whatever my phone is, it's my custom GPTs. I get the output. I say, bro, this is really great, and we have a conversation about how great the GPT is. Or no, we need to change this, but I still edit everything. So.
Yeah. So, and you could even. Yeah.
Recording on the ChatGPT, I'm like, listen to this, and then tell me about it. Loom videos from sales calls that I had, and I took Loom videos from a Q&A that I had with my life coach and my spiritual coach, and I was like, hey, here's all the things. And I started a self-development project inside of it. And then I started getting like really creepy with it, like, write me eulogies. Where people go, hey, what are people, I'm serious. Look, it was one of those things, like, write me statements about what it's my 80th birthday, because I work with a gentleman, he's the business coach for Rick Hendrick, Chick-fil-A, Zaxby's, all those, he's my spirit. He's like, you need to go in, he's like, you have to write a vision statement for your life, so write what people are going to say about you at 80 years old. Exactly. It's your last birthday, what are they going to say about it? Like, that's pretty rough. I have some things that I need to change, and then I put more input of what I would like to accomplish, and I changed it so that I have a place to, like, you can take all the stuff you already have, basically what I'm saying, play it for it, give it to it, you have conversations with it, and it will get you close.
And it's not emotional. That's the thing too, right? Like if you, sometimes I find personality tests like funny because it'll be like, this person will be like, yeah, I took this test and I got this result. And I was like, okay, well, like, let's look at your answers. And it's like, I'm a very easy person to talk to. Totally agree. I'm like, bro, you just got in an argument like 5 minutes ago with somebody. Like, so like, there's no more of that with AI. So like you could literally, now that I know you have a published book, you could take the whole PDF, put it in ChatGPT, and you just need the prompt at this point. And it'll create it so that way now you have your emails, you have your social media content, you have everything, and it'll sound just like you. And nobody will be able to tell unless you tell them. And that I can bank on at this point, right? Like if you don't do this, people can tell, but once you add this aspect into it, nobody will be able to tell. And I test it all the time because some stuff I'll write with ChatGPT and post on social, some stuff I won't. I'll write myself, and nobody's ever been able to tell the difference. So.
Yeah, people, like you mentioned before, people buy from people, so that's how you got a book.
Right.
That's why I like your book.
Yeah.
It's also a great book, by the way.
But, you know, when we're talking about acceleration, that's a spectrum, right? So people go from like the long form to like instant, but you can accelerate your process just by getting to a first draft more quickly, and then that's something that you review, and you can still make it your own and edit. So you decide what aspects, if you have a clear vision of like what your processes are, and then you can dial in on which parts you want to accelerate and you know, how you want to shift, upshift, downshift. But I think sometimes people go from like, this is too long to this microwave instant process that has like very low quality control checks, and then you're in that situation where people can tell that this
Yeah.
was an overly accelerated process, and somewhere in there your voice got lost. And so I'll want to get very quickly to a first draft. That'll save me 2-3 weeks or a month, and then from there I can take it, or
Yeah.
you can push it further and say I want to get to a final draft, and I'll just edit that, so
Sure.
you can actually dial up and dial down that process.
Yeah, for sure. This will be a game changer. So
Any other questions? No. Well, I think that was great, man.
appreciate it, brother.
I think it was really good. So, and I will say too that when we met 4 years ago, 3 speakers sat in here and talked about the power of personal brand, and I thought it was so just rah-rah, whatever. And it wasn't until probably a year and a half ago one of my coaches was like, no, this has to be a thing that you work on. Here is a framework. It has completely elevated our business and changed everything because, you know, to your point and some others, people buy from people.
Yeah.
They knew what it was we did, but once they start saying like, oh, I like this guy and I know, like, and trust him now, it's been a game changer.
And I think that one thing, and I'll piggyback on that, one thing that I think a lot of people do sometimes is they look at the top companies who have been around for 80 years and they go, well, they don't do it, right? But if you look at Nike and Adidas, okay, yeah, Phil Knight doesn't have a personal brand, but if you look at the companies that are destroying market share like Alpha Elite, Gymshark, and all Bear Performance Nutrition, like at the basis of those companies is a guy who promotes himself, right? So it's like, don't just look at the big companies, the multi-million, $100 million, billion-dollar companies that have been around for 80 years. Look at guys who are credible and who are eating the market share fast, and you'll see at the basis of all of them is a personal brand.
100%. Well, thank you guys for your time and for coming out today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, appreciate it.
Great. And I think from a tactical level, like everybody could take this and actually do something with it, which is what excites me the most.
Provided the prompts, thank you for that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
They would just show the results, they never show
Right.
the prompt, they keep it behind the.
well, that's the thing I learned from one of my clients and friends. His name is Ali Jamal, and that's what he always taught me. He said, bro, he said, don't be like one of these speakers who says that they run a business who's just rah-rah. He said, make sure that you talk about stuff so that when they walk out of there today, they can get some sort of value. So that's the key. And so like I said, if you go to that, there's videos, there's tutorials on there, and I'll continue to add more stuff there, but this presentation is on there right now as we speak.
Very cool. All right, guys. Well, again, thank you for coming out. I'm not sure when the next one is that we're going to do. It'll be next month at some time. I don't know who's going to speak yet. If you're interested, though, and you think you've got something really great that you want to share, are you ready? Okay. All right. Well, so Nick and Lloyd will be up here next month. I wasn't sure if you guys are ready for it, but so they'll be next month. But if you're interested in coming up here and sharing, if you've got something that you think can add value to people, reach out to me and let me know. We can have a discussion about it. But other than that, Sam again has so graciously left this place open. If you want to work out of here today, you totally can. And there's a ton of Chick-fil-A still sitting out there. So if you're hungry, grab some. Thanks, guys.
No, bro. I thought I
You're gonna go hide and throw that away right now?